Hi, welcome. On this video, I want to do a follow-up regarding Zach George. Again, encourage you to watch my last video by way of a dog that he's trying to show as an example, an aggressive dog. Working with this dog to establish change. And again, I talk about some of the major themes here by way of bribery, accommodation, negotiation, how that will offer up a false image of change by way of appearances. I talk about the issue in the dog training world by way of superficial response and how that has become the standard in the dog training world, but totally disconnected by way of depth, by way of connecting dots properly with dogs as social animals, with how their decision-making processes influence and govern at that level. Our role in the relationship in terms of meeting a dog's social needs. And the core themes I talk about, the ingredients that are missing by way of this very popular idea, by way of influence and control. Now here, I want to play some more of this video here just to further comment on this disconnected picture. And again, when people talk about, again, one of this live stream he's doing, where people do put forward those challenges saying, well, you know, Zach, show us a aggressive dog that you work with, okay? And this is what he offers up. Again, in the last video, you see a moment where the dog actually becomes, has a aggressive moment, a moment of challenge. When Zach George starts to immediately connect with this dog by way of petting on this dog's head when the dog has a muzzle on, and just like fire and gasoline, how that triggered off that moment. I talk about that. The issue, the importance of clarity, the right way, okay, when starting to reverse course with a aggressive dog.
Legitimate scientific value.
Suppressing your emotions doesn't work. It doesn't work with your dogs either.
I know that most of you are intelligent, emotionally mature enough to realize that, but you know, dogs and people are virtually identical emotively. So here I am doing some lure training. Notice dog is still muzzled.
So here's those words again. Talk about these words that are used in the dog training world. You know, talk about luring the dog. Okay, so how you want to look at that in terms of engagement, in terms of jumping into a relationship problem at the very beginning. You hear certain words such as luring the dog. You need to replace that with bribery. But beyond that, okay, this whole thing about just getting a dog to respond using a motivating agent, okay, how that again, you know, is being marketed by these trainers by way of, you know, of trying to sell that in terms of perceptions of a dog changing. But the question that people need to ask is, well, what's the criteria that these trainers are actually using to establish that the perceptions of dogs are actually changing within this framework of superficial response? Well, they're not. Okay, understand, because the two core ingredients to actually establish that by way of how they're engaging are missing. Influence and control. This is why when you get a dog on a leash, you start to bring a dog under a level of intentional control, a level of influence, you're going to see the real deal. You're going to actually be able to, you know, define the current state of the relationship. Now, again, and one of the themes is intent. I talk about that as well, that the dog needs to understand. Okay, so it's not just like some sort of erratic, you know, interaction-based method. Okay, it has to be intentional by way of, I talk about speaking the right language. So when you see my videos, how I'm moving the same way all the time, the dog understands the intent. And even in terms of alignment of the level of control that's brought through a leash and influence, it's done in such a way where the dog coming into agreement with, okay, it's not meant to, it is a power play, but it's not meant to be the type of, you know, level of control influence that's going to trigger off high challenge or erratic. And this is where you get into this issue about the dog daddy. I talk about the problems with the dog daddy. You know, he does power play it, but you know, the language of the type of method he's employing does not align. Okay, and then this is where you have guys like Zach George that take advantage of that misalignment, takes advantage of all the confusion for his own agenda. Okay, it's like a Trojan horse here, and this is where you hear him talking about in these videos about legislation, you know, control. He's trying to take advantage of the confusion, but totally for a corrupt agenda. totally corrupt. Understand, this is all about the human and not in a good way. Okay, this is not about dogs. This is not about meeting the social needs of dogs. This isn't about truly caring about dogs. This is all selfish, self-focused, emotionally self-focused, self-love stuff going on here. This is not about, truly about caring about dogs, having real empathy for dogs, real empathy for dog owners. Because if he did have that, he wouldn't be marketing this stuff in the first place. And so, even when he talks about the science of dog training, this does not meet the criteria of real science on so many levels. I go through all of that. So anyone that would have a reasonable objection to what this idea represents and actually lays out all the points at which I do, what he tries to do then is tries to quarterback this, tries to push back on those objections to say, well, anyone who would dare come against this ideology, this corrupt agenda, well, that makes you a dog abuser. Okay, just pay attention to how this guy tries to frame this all up. And so there's many out there try to do this, but this is all totally corrupted at the very core.
This is a dog who has bitten people.
And mom's holding her leash.
Mom's still holding the leash, right? And so here I am. I'm cautiously luring. I know I'm relatively protected. I'm looking at the body language.
So when you look at this imagery here, the dog's on a loose leash. The dog's, again, based on already signing the contract in the relationship. This is like the permissive parenting style, okay, kind of enabling type of thing going on here. A dog being more in a possessive attachment. Okay, so all those things I talk about to reveal are not there. The dog is still on a muzzle, but now that level of, and what the counterbalance is, and this is the problem, when a dog goes back to a level of gaining comfort the wrong way, the dog appears to be calmer because, what's going on here is those themes I talk about: bribery, accommodation, negotiation. Okay, so this is all part of this imagery here. So to even get a clear picture as to the current state of the relationship, that's not being offered up. Because this is Zach George's, default setting. Okay, understand this is his foundation. This is his parenting style, so to speak. So this has nothing to do with actually fixing the relationship. I mean, people have to understand that. And the reason that these trainers get away with this so often is because the dog owners, they're thinking, with emotion. And so they're going to individuals like this, on purpose, right? Based on on what's being marketed. And so it's like a win-win the wrong way. So the dog owner thinks, I don't have to change how I think. I don't have to, come into a leadership role. I don't have to bring my dog under, intentional control and influence. I can trust appearances this way. And this guy is an expert. He's not. Okay, he's a social media influencer, but he hasn't even asked the questions at the very beginning years ago. But this is the culture. I understand this is the culture, and so people buy into this, and they'll buy into the blame shifting on the dogs. They won't truly be happy about the relationship, but in terms of the trade-off and saying, well, I'd rather just have it this way, and people will invest a lot of time, a lot of money into this, and keep cycling through. I mean, there'll be like a hamster spinning in the wheel for like weeks and years, months and years. But this is the thing. These trainers are exploiting this. Okay, they're exploiting the relationship. It'd be like having a permissive parent bringing a counselor into their home, but based on their ideas of things, right? They aren't going to bring a counselor in that's advocating the authoritative parenting style. Okay, they're going to bring in a like-minded person. That's going to sell them. Now, in terms of parenting, in terms of that type of example, sometimes it's a little more obvious that there's problems in that, right? But with dogs, less so, because even though it aligns the same way, because again, we have, we're dealing with an animal, we have a certain idea of things, and then these trainers are playing off of the appearances this way. Totally misaligned.
To the dog. Look at the frog legs. Look at the relaxed nature of this dog. Now, critics of mine will say, Zach, that dog isn't aggressive. And I take that as a compliment.
So you're saying, well, that dog's not aggressive. See, that's the thing. That's why you get guys like Zach George, even balanced dog trainers, going into shelters with treats in their hand, and they're connecting that way through emotion, through treats, and they offer up that same type of, deceptive picture, saying it almost makes it look like, well, how these dogs even get into the shell? Like, how did they even end up in here? Look at them; they're fantastic. I mean, just look. I mean, think about what I'm saying. But those two core ingredients are missing. They're not doing a proper assessment through influence and control being brought into how they're engaging a relationship problem. Okay, the truth isn't being revealed, and no different here, right? He's immediately engaged in this way because they're taking a totally different path here, right? So they can say, hey, this dog doesn't even look like the dog's even aggressive. This is how people get into trouble. Understand, this is why when trainers step out of the scenes, like leaving the scene of a crime, someone still gets bit. Okay, then it's like, where did that come from? Well, that was there the whole time. The relationship problem never get addressed because these trainers are not approaching a relationship problem for what it represents. Their idea about training itself is totally misaligned. Okay, it does not have those core ingredients as part of what they're doing.
Because you're not seeing further aggression displayed. You see what I'm saying? Where if you're seeing a dog act aggressively, that is trainer error.
So he's talking about trainer error. So when you bring those two core ingredients in, the dog isn't gonna like, right, the fact that you're starting to engage the problem, okay, with those two core ingredients. But think of it this way, and this is the thing to really start to think about for individuals that are looking for answers. It's no different. Ask yourself the question: when you're changing your parenting style, moving from permissive to authoritative, you're starting to get into that selfish child's airspace. Ask yourself the question: are they going to like it? No, okay, they're not going to like it. They're going to push back on it. That's the challenge I'm talking about, that type of pushback. But if you're doing it in a reasonable way, in a way that makes sense to the child, even though they don't like it, right, they're going to come into agreement over time. Okay, that's the thing. So, when I talk about, parental influence, I talk about, a intentional interaction-based method. It's about the relationship, okay? It's about how you're interacting. It's about interacting in ways that the dog's going to accept. But those two core ingredients, they have to be brought in. They're not brought in here. Understand, this is totally deceptive. So, but here Zach will say, well, you can trigger aggression. See, if you do it, so he's totally flipped upside down here. Because ask the question, what is he doing? He's exploiting everything. He's trying to incite. He's trying to inflame people's emotions. He's trying to make you believe that anything other than what he's offering up, is abuse. You see a certain reaction from a dog, well, now the dog's being harmed, right? But again, I encourage you to watch the video I have on my YouTube channel called the ice cream truck example, right? By way of talking through a example of a selfish child-parent interaction. The child hears the word no and has an extreme, meltdown, no pun intended. But looking at that type of reaction, you think, well, the parent must have physically struck the child. No, what triggered the reaction was the word no and the fact that this child's selfish. Okay, it's relationship. It's the same here. Understand, these trainers, they're not able to, or not willing to, or not even, wanting to even consider reconciling the responses properly by way of the relationship. That's why the relationship never ever gets fixed. This is part of the deal. This is like a package deal. And this doesn't go just into, force free. This goes into balanced dog training as well, because both these groups are in agreement with approaching training as a learning-based exercise. But I would encourage you to think about that. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, you're dealing with a relationship problem. You're dealing with behavioral issues that have escalated. Do you honestly think that it's a learning-based exercise this way, using treats? And doesn't even make sense. It's totally ridiculous. But the dog training world has created this this culture which benefits the trainers, right? It's totally corrupt. It's totally unethical. It's morally bankrupt. But these trainers have made money off of this. It's so easy to do, and it's gotten so big and massive that blaming dogs seems to be normal. Like it's become normalized. The dysfunctional nature of what's going on has become normalized. So I would encourage anyone looking at what's going on in the dog training world is take a serious look. And then you add all the problems. Look at I go through my Flipping the Script series, all the controversies. Go through and look at them. And, it's going to shine a different light on them in a way that's going to make sense. It's going to say, okay, no wonder. But these trainers don't learn from any of them. They're still unresolved. All the divisiveness. Look at all the back and forth, all the confusion. That's all symptomatic of what is being marketed. It's all symptomatic. So again, check my website. Lots of great information. I would just encourage anyone to not even like these people on social media. Understand they're being fueled by all the popularity and all. You should not be liking their pages. You should not be, following these people. You should be, in fact, you should be challenging them. Ask them, what's the criteria to establish that those responses represent the perception of dogs are changing? They can't answer it. All they're going to say is, trust me, right? And then start to connect the dots I'm talking about. It's a total fraud. That's what it is. It's a fraud. And this has been going on for years. So check out the information I put out, very specific as to the problem, but also the solution by way of a intentional interaction-based method. Thanks for watching.